All right, so today we're diving deep into nonviolent communication.
NVC.
NVC, yeah, exactly. With Marshall Rosenberg's book, Nonviolent Communication, A Language of Life. I was just reading it before this, and it's really cool how he talks about even positive things, like giving compliments can be
Manipulative.
yeah, manipulative if they're not framed in the right way.
Exactly. NVC really makes you examine the subtleties of communication.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
So like what?
It's not just what we say, but the underlying needs and intentions behind our words.
Like looking under the hood at all the moving parts.
Exactly.
Yeah. So the book, it kicks off with what Rosenberg calls life-alienating communication.
Right.
And I was thinking about how often we hear or say phrases like, "you make me feel."
Oh, yeah, the blame game. That's classic life-alienating communication.
Right.
Yeah, you think about it. When you say you make me feel, you're giving up responsibility for your own emotions.
It's like you're saying you're in control of my feelings.
Right? You're the puppet master.
Yeah.
And that just sets the stage for conflict, yeah.
Totally. But Rosenberg takes it even a step further. He links this kind of language to actual violence.
He does, and he has some interesting research to back it up.
Oh, wow.
Psychologist O.J. Harvey found that there's societies that are more prone to labeling people good or bad are actually more violent.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Wow, that's a scary thought. I mean, how much is our everyday language just adding to this culture of blame and conflict?
Exactly, and that's where NVC comes in.
Right.
It's a powerful antidote. Rosenberg, he gives us these 4 clear steps to transform how we communicate.
Right.
And it all starts with observation.
Okay, so let's break down these steps a little bit. Observation. That seems pretty straightforward.
Yeah, it seems like it should be.
Yeah.
You know?
Just to state the facts.
Yeah, but I think there's a little more to it than meets the eye.
I have a feeling, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. The nuance is separating observation from evaluation.
Okay.
Remember that example with the teachers complaining about the principal
Oh, yeah.
in the book?
Where they're saying he talks too much and he's so full of himself.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. Those are judgments, though,
Right.
not observations.
Okay.
A feeder observation would be something like, the principal spoke for 15 minutes at the meeting, or the principal shared 5 of his own ideas.
So it's like sticking to the observable data.
Yeah. Like a scientist, yeah.
Yeah. No opinions or anything, just
the facts.
the raw facts. Yeah.
Exactly.
But it sounds simple. But, I mean, how often do we just jump to those evaluations in our daily conversations?
All the time, yeah. That was so stupid.
You're always late.
You're always late, yeah.
Yeah. I'm so guilty of that, but I can see how that one shift in language could really de-escalate a situation, especially when emotions are running high.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It creates space for understanding instead of getting defensive.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've laid the groundwork with observation, so let's move to the next step. Feelings.
Okay, so this is where it gets a little more personal, I think.
Yeah.
We're talking about identifying and expressing how we feel. But, I mean, isn't that something that a lot of us struggle with?
Oh, absolutely. We're often taught to suppress our feelings or kind of downplay them, especially like the negative ones.
Right.
But, you know, in NVC, feelings are actually valuable data points.
Okay.
They give us really crucial insights into what our needs are.
So instead of like, the classic, I feel fine, we could say I feel frustrated or I'm feeling excited or...
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
The more rich your emotional vocabulary is, the more clearly you can communicate.
Right. Yeah.
What's going on
Right.
inside. And once we've identified those feelings, we move to the third step, needs.
This is where it gets really interesting, I think. You start to connect the dots between like what you're feeling and the needs that are behind those feelings.
Yeah.
Right?
You got it.
Yeah.
So it's recognizing that our feelings aren't caused by other people,
Okay.
but by our own unmet needs.
Oh, okay.
This is a huge shift in perspective for
bet.
a lot of people.
Yeah.
Right.
I can imagine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's like it takes the focus away from blaming someone else
Right.
and puts it on understanding.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, classic example, if someone cuts you up in traffic and you feel angry,
Yeah.
it's not because of their driving. It's because your need for safety or respect was compromised.
Okay, so instead of yelling out, "what a jerk," I could say, "wow, I am feeling scared and a little disrespected right now because my need for safety was just totally jolted."
Exactly. Now you're speaking the language of NVC.
Okay.
And that leads us to the final step, which is requests.
Okay, so this is where we kind of take action
Yeah.
and articulate what we need to feel better in that given situation.
Exactly.
But there's an art to it, though, I bet.
There is. You want to be clear, specific, and positive in your requests.
Okay.
So instead of saying, don't be late, you might say, would you be willing to let me know if you're running behind?
Oh, yeah. I like that.
Right.
It's focused on what you want instead.
Yeah, what you don't want. Exactly.
It's clear action.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got these steps, but I feel like there's this bigger piece that's missing, right? It's like we can follow all the steps perfectly, but without this one thing, it's just going to feel mechanical.
You've hit the nail on the head that certain something is empathy. And
Ah,
then we'll dive deep into the power of empathy in the next part of our deep dive.
okay, empathy. I'm ready to unpack that. This is already making me reevaluate how I communicate with people.
It's pretty amazing stuff.
All right, so empathy, let's explore this a little bit more.
Yeah, yeah.
We touched on it a little bit in the last part, but I'm really eager to understand how it works,
Right.
like in practice.
Yeah.
Especially when we're dealing with those like sticky situations or difficult people.
You've hit on a really crucial point. Empathy is at the heart of NVC,
Right.
but it's often misunderstood. It's not about agreeing with someone or offering advice
Right,
or even trying to fix their problems.
right.
It's about connecting with their experience on a much deeper level.
Yeah, I think I'm starting to grasp that. It's about truly listening and trying to understand
Yeah,
their feelings and needs, even if we don't agree with them or share that same perspective.
exactly.
But I have to admit, like, sometimes my instinct is to just jump in with solution
Right.
or even share my own similar experiences.
Oh, yeah.
Is that, like, counterproductive?
Yeah, that's what Rosenberg calls roadblocks to empathy.
Okay.
Things like advising, one-upping,
Right,
consoling, storytelling, all that.
right, right.
We think we're relating, but we're actually shifting the focus away
Right.
from the other person.
So instead of saying, oh, you poor thing, I went through the exact same thing.
Right?
Yeah.
We might say, it sounds like you're feeling really disappointed because you were hoping for a different outcome.
Gotcha.
Right? We reflect back their feelings and needs without
Right.
adding our own stuff.
Without inserting our own agenda.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I'm seeing the difference. So it's about holding space for their emotions
Yes.
without trying to control them or fix them.
Yes.
Okay, but what about those times when someone's really struggling to articulate their feelings?
Right.
What does empathy look like then?
Sometimes the most powerful empathy is actually expressed through silence.
Silence.
Just being fully present with someone, listening without judgment, that can be so comforting.
Interesting. It seems a little counterintuitive, but I can see how just being there without filling the space with words can actually convey a really deep sense of understanding.
Exactly. And then when you do speak, paraphrasing can be really powerful.
Okay.
It's reflecting back what you've heard to make sure you're understanding correctly.
So we could say something like, it seems like you're feeling frustrated because you need more support. Is that right?
Exactly. That shows that you're really listening and gives the other person a chance to clarify if you've missed something.
Right. Gotcha.
It's not about parroting their words back to them, but
Mm.
just capturing the essence.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I can only imagine how validating it feels
Oh, yeah.
to know that someone is really hearing you, especially when you're feeling vulnerable.
Absolutely. It's a powerful form of connection.
Yeah. Okay, so now, of course, there are times when empathy can feel really challenging, even with the best intentions.
Yeah.
Especially when we're faced with like really strong emotions like anger or grief.
Oh, yeah.
It's tough to stay grounded and compassionate when someone's like yelling or lashing out.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Rosenberg actually emphasizes the importance of self-empathy in those moments.
Self-empathy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Remember, he said we need empathy to give empathy. So if
Okay.
we're feeling triggered or overwhelmed, the first step is to check in with our own feelings. And
So it's kind of like that, put on your own oxygen mask first.
exactly.
Yeah, before assisting others.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, makes sense. What if we've like tried that and we're still feeling stuck?
Well, Rosenberg suggests what he calls screaming non-violently.
Okay.
It's about finding a healthy outlet for your frustration.
Okay.
So you can come back to the conversation with more clarity and compassion.
So it could be like going for a run or journaling or meditating or even just taking a few deep breaths.
Exactly. Whatever you need to do to regulate your emotions so you can show up as your best self.
Right.
And if you're still struggling, it's perfectly okay to just take a break from the conversation
Okay.
and come back to it when you're feeling more centered.
I appreciate that reminder. It's not about denying your own needs
Right.
or forcing yourself to be empathetic when you're not in the right headspace.
Exactly. Empathy is a practice.
Right.
It's a skill we develop over time.
Yeah,
And it requires patience and compassion for ourselves and others.
totally. So we've been talking a lot about empathy in the context of interacting with other people.
Right.
But what about applying NVC to ourselves,
Yeah.
to our own inner dialogue?
That's a great point. The way we talk to ourselves can be just as critical, if not more so,
Yeah.
than how we talk to others.
Do you think that's where self-compassion comes in?
Absolutely. Rosenberg really emphasizes the importance of treating ourselves with the same compassion we extend to others. Remember that story about his polka dot suit?
Oh, yeah.
He totally berated himself for accidentally getting ink all over his brand new suit.
It's something we all do, though.
We all do it.
Right.
We make a mistake, and our inner critic goes on a rampage.
Totally.
Rosenberg realized he was missing an opportunity to practice self-empathy.
Yeah.
He was like, what unmet need is behind this self-judgment?
Right.
What am I feeling? What am I needing in this moment?
Yeah. And through that process, he was able to shift from self-criticism to self-compassion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a great reminder that we can apply NVC to any situation.
Right.
Even our own internal struggles.
I love that story. It highlights a key principle. Judging ourselves, it doesn't help us learn or grow.
Right, it doesn't.
Right.
It actually hinders our progress.
Yeah, it makes it harder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
NVC actually encourages us to evaluate ourselves in a way that promotes learning rather than self-hatred.
I'm really resonating with that. It's about shifting from a punitive mindset to a growth mindset.
Yes.
But how do we actually do that?
Yeah.
Like, how do we cultivate that self-compassion in a practical way?
Well, one powerful tool is what Rosenberg calls NVC mourning. It's a process of connecting with the feelings and unmet needs that were present when you took an action you now regret.
So it's not about dwelling on the past or beating yourself up,
Right.
but about trying to understand the motivations behind our choices.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm starting to see how that can lead to self-forgiveness.
It does. Self-forgiveness isn't about condoning your actions.
Right.
It's about releasing that negative energy that you're holding on to so you can move forward
Right.
with greater awareness and compassion.
It's like giving yourself permission to learn from your mistakes without carrying around the weight of guilt and shame.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And in addition to NVC mourning, Rosenberg actually gives us another practical exercise for shifting from self-judgment to self-acceptance.
Okay.
Remember the one where you transform have-to statements into choose-to statements?
Oh, yeah.
That one's really good.
It seems so simple, but so profound. Can you remind me how it works again?
The first step is to identify all the things in your life that you tell yourself you have to do.
Right.
Those tasks or obligations that feel burdensome or unpleasant.
Oh, I'm already feeling overwhelmed thinking about making that list.
It can be overwhelming.
But just acknowledging those have-to could be really eye-opening.
It is. It reveals how much we operate on autopilot.
Yeah.
Doing things out of obligation rather than choice.
Wow. Yeah.
Then comes the challenging part. For each item on the list, you acknowledge that you're actually choosing to do it.
Okay.
Even if it doesn't feel like a choice.
So we're rewriting the script in our minds.
Yeah.
Like changing I have to I choose to.
Exactly.
But like my inner critic's going to be like, no way.
It's going to jump right in with all the reason why you have to do it.
Okay. So then you gently push back and say, okay, well, maybe it doesn't feel like a choice, but I'm still ultimately the one that's deciding to do it.
Exactly.
Okay. And once we've acknowledged the choice, what's next?
You want to explore the motivations behind it by completing the statement. I choose to do this because I want.
Oh, and that's where the real magic happens, I think.
Yeah.
You start to uncover those needs.
Yeah.
That are driving your choices.
Exactly.
Even the ones that feel like obligations.
Right. And sometimes those needs are surprising. You might discover you're doing something for approval or to avoid conflict. Or even just out of habit. Once those needs are brought to light, you can start making more conscious choices.
I love that.
You can ask yourself, is this how I want to meet this need?
Right.
Are there other options that align better with my values?
Wow, this is so powerful. It's like shining a light on our unconscious motivations.
Exactly.
And giving us the power to choose differently.
Exactly.
I can see how this could be a game changer for anyone who struggles with self-judgment.
Absolutely it can. And speaking of challenging emotions, there's one in particular that often gets a bad rap.
Oh, I know what you're going to say.
Anger.
Anger. Definitely an emotion most of us try to just like avoid or suppress. It just feels so messy and destructive.
Yeah, for good reason. But Rosenberg actually has a fascinating perspective on anger. He suggests it's actually a valuable emotion if we understand how to use it constructively. He sees anger as a wake-up call, a signal that a need of ours isn't being met.
Okay, so instead of viewing anger as something to be feared or suppressed, we can use it as a guide.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that anger isn't caused by other people, but by our own unmet needs. Once we understand that connection, we can start expressing our anger in a way that leads to solutions rather than just more conflict.
I'm sensing a theme here. It's all about taking responsibility for our own emotional experience.
You got it.
Rather than blaming others.
That's the essence of NVC.
Right, okay.
And Rosenberg gives us a really clear process for expressing anger responsibly.
Okay.
He breaks it down into 4 steps, and it starts with identify the stimulus of your anger.
Okay.
The event or situation that triggered the feeling.
But then we kind of go deeper, right, and explore the needs that are fueling that anger.
Right.
It's not the event itself.
Right.
It's our interpretation of it.
Exactly.
That's causing us to feel that way.
Yeah. And that's where things can get tricky.
Right.
We tend to think in terms of blame. You know, they did this to me, so I'm angry. But NVC encourages us to shift that focus to our own needs.
Okay.
I'm feeling angry because I need respect, or I'm feeling angry because I need to be heard.
So it's about owning our feelings and connecting them to our needs, rather than just projecting them onto other people.
Exactly. By connecting your anger to your needs, you're taking responsibility for your emotional experience.
Right.
And that empowers you to find solutions because you're not stuck in that blame game. The 3rd step is to give yourself empathy for those unmet needs.
So acknowledging the validity of our feelings and offering ourselves compassion even when we're feeling angry.
Yeah, even when you're feeling angry.
That seems a little counterintuitive, but I can see how it could be really transformative.
It is. And once you've done that, then you can move to the 4th step.
Okay.
Which is expressing your anger to the other person.
Okay.
And this is where those 4 steps of NVC that we talked about earlier really come in handy.
Right.
Observation, feelings, needs, requests.
So we use that same framework to communicate our experience in a way that invites understanding.
Exactly.
Instead of just like lashing out or blaming.
You got it. You might say something like, when you didn't show up for our meeting, I felt really frustrated because I was needing to collaborate on this project. Would you be willing to let me know in advance if you can't make it next time?
I love that. It's direct, honest, and respectful.
Right.
And it's about expressing our anger without attacking the other person.
Exactly.
Yeah, I remember Rosenberg giving this really powerful example.
Oh, yeah.
Of this in the book, the dialogue between the father and the son.
Oh, yeah.
Where the son took the car without asking.
Right.
And the father was initially furious.
Yeah, he wanted to punish his son.
Right.
But then he remembered the principles of NVC.
Right.
And he took a moment to connect with his own feelings and needs.
Right.
He realized that he was feeling scared because he needed to trust his son.
Yeah, and that shift in perspective allowed him to approach the conversation with more empathy and understanding.
Right.
And instead of like lecturing or punishing, he actually listened to his son's perspective.
Yeah, it's a beautiful illustration of how NVC can transform even the most heated conflicts into opportunities for connection and understanding.
This is making me rethink my whole approach to anger. It's not about suppressing the emotion, but understanding the message it's trying to convey.
Exactly.
And then communicating that message in a way that respects everyone's needs.
That's the power of NVC.
Right.
It gives us the tools to navigate even the most challenging emotions with greater awareness and compassion.
Yeah. Now, we've been talking a lot about expressing anger responsibly.
Right.
But I'm curious about those situations where force might be necessary. Does NVC have anything to say about that?
Rosenberg addresses that directly in the book.
Okay.
He distinguishes between 2 types of force.
Okay.
Protective force and punitive force.
Okay.
Punitive force is what we typically think of as punishment.
Right.
It's about inflicting pain or suffering.
Right.
To make someone repent or change their behavior.
Okay.
And Rosenberg argues that that is actually ineffective.
Okay.
And even counterproductive.
So what's the alternative?
Yeah.
What does protective force look like in the context of NVC?
Protective force is about using force as a last resort.
Okay.
When there's no other way to prevent harm.
Right.
Or injustice.
So it's about setting boundaries and taking action to protect ourselves or others, but doing so from a place of empathy and understanding.
Exactly. Rosenberg emphasizes that even when using protective force, it's important to maintain your empathy and connection with the other person.
I'm remembering that story he tells about this school that was struggling with student behavior. And they created this do-nothing room.
Oh, yeah.
Where students could go to kind of calm down if they were feeling overwhelmed or disruptive.
It was a huge success.
Right.
Because the students understood that the purpose wasn't to punish them,
right.
but to provide a safe and supportive environment.
It's like a timeout, but without the judgment or shame.
Exactly. It's about helping the student regulate their emotions and make more conscious choices.
Precisely. And it highlights a key principle.
Okay.
Even when force is necessary, it's important to maintain your empathy and connection. This is making me rethink my assumptions about, like, punishment and discipline. It's about choosing compassion over coercion.
Yeah.
even in those difficult situations.
It's a challenging shift, but it's at the heart of NVC.
Right.
And it leads to more sustainable and harmonious outcomes.
Totally. Before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, there's one more aspect of NVC I want to touch on. Expressing appreciation.
Ah, appreciation. That's a fun one.
Yeah.
And it's more nuanced.
We're not just talking about saying thank you or giving compliments.
Right, exactly. Right. NVC encourages us to express appreciation in a way that's authentic.
Okay.
And heartfelt, without manipulation or judgment. Remember that story Rosenberg shares about the Native American man who was trying to praise his horse?
Oh, yes, where he ended up making the horse feel insecure.
Right.
Because his praise was really about, like, showing off to his friend.
Exactly. It's a great example of how even compliments can be manipulative.
Yeah.
If you're not careful, our appreciation can come across as insincere.
Right.
Or even self-serving.
Right.
Right.
So how do we express appreciation in a way that is truly genuine and connecting?
Well, Rosenberg suggests focusing on 3 key components.
Okay.
The action that you appreciate.
Okay.
The feeling it evokes in you.
Okay.
And the need of yours that was met.
Okay. So instead of saying, "You're such a good cook," we might say, "I really enjoyed the delicious meal that you prepared. I'm feeling so satisfied and grateful because my need for nourishment was met."
That's a perfect example.
Yeah.
It's specific. It expresses your genuine feelings.
Right.
And it connects to your needs.
Right.
It's like giving a gift from the heart.
Yeah, I love that analogy.
Right.
It's about celebrating the joy of giving and receiving without any hidden agenda.
Exactly.
I imagine when we express appreciation in this way, it creates this beautiful ripple effect.
It does. It nourishes our relationships and strengthens our sense of connection and gratitude.
Right.
But just as we learn to express appreciation, we also need to learn how to receive it gracefully.
Oh, that's a good point. So many of us struggle with that.
Yeah, we do.
We get uncomfortable or self-conscious when someone praises us.
I know, me too. We downplay it, we deflect it, we even get suspicious of the other person's motives.
Yeah.
Right.
So how do we break free from those patterns and learn to receive appreciation with an open heart?
NVC encourages us to receive appreciation with the same empathy that we extend to other messages.
Okay.
We listen to what the other person is saying.
Right.
We connect with their feelings and needs.
Right.
And we allow ourselves to feel the joy of knowing that we've made a positive impact on their life.
That's beautifully put. It's about recognizing that appreciation is a gift and receiving it with gratitude and grace.
Exactly. It's about allowing ourselves to be touched by the other person's kindness.
Yeah.
And acknowledging the beauty of that connection.
This exploration of NVC has been so insightful. I'm starting to see how it's not just about communication techniques, but it's about cultivating a whole way of being in the world.
Yeah.
That's grounded in empathy and compassion and authenticity.
It is. And I'm excited to see where this journey takes you as you continue to integrate these principles into your life.
I can already feel the shift happening. I can't wait to see how these new ways of communicating transform my relationships with myself and others.
It's pretty amazing.
You know, I've been thinking about everything we talked about, in the last 2 parts about NVC. And I'm really struck by how interconnected it all is.
Yeah.
It's not just like these individual components.
Right.
Like they all kind of weave together.
Yeah, it's like a tapestry.
Yeah.
Where each thread contributes to the beauty and strength.
There's this recurring theme of personal responsibility I'm noticing that seems to run through the heart of it.
Yeah, personal responsibility is definitely a cornerstone of NVC.
Right.
It's about recognizing that we have the power to choose our responses.
Right.
Even in really challenging situations.
So it's about owning our feelings and needs and making conscious choices.
Yes.
That align with our values and taking responsibility for how our words and actions impact others.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That can feel both empowering and a little daunting, don't you think?
Oh, totally. It's empowering because it reminds us that we're not just victims of circumstance. We have agency, but it can also feel daunting, like you said, because it requires us to kind of like let go of blame and step into our own power.
It's a shift in mindset.
Yeah, it is.
For sure. But NVC provides us with those tools and that framework to help us navigate that shift.
Right, with compassion.
Yeah, with grace and compassion.
And it seems like self-empathy is such a crucial tool in that process. Like we can't truly connect with others or take responsibility for our actions if we're not taking care of our own inner world.
Exactly. Self-empathy is foundational to NVC. Remember that saying, you can't pour from an empty cup.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one.
If we're not taking care of our own needs, nurturing our own well-being, we're really not in a position to show up for others.
That makes perfect sense, yeah. It makes me realize how often we kind of like neglect our own needs.
Yeah, we do.
In the name of like pleasing others or meeting those external expectations?
It's so common,
Yeah.
and it leads to resentment, burnout, disconnection.
So self-empathy is not selfish.
Right.
It's essential for creating a more compassionate and harmonious world.
It is, and it's an ongoing practice. It's
Right.
about cultivating that kind and compassionate inner voice that supports us on our journey.
And just like any practice, it takes patience and persistence and a willingness to, like, be gentle with ourselves,
Absolutely.
especially when we make mistakes.
Yeah, that's the beauty of NVC. It's
Yeah.
not about striving for perfection. It's about embracing our imperfections and choosing to connect with ourselves and others from a place of genuine compassion.
It's about remembering that, like, we're all human, and
Yeah,
we're all doing the best we can with what we've got.
beautifully said.
Yeah.
And the more we practice NVC, the
Yeah.
more naturally it becomes just a part of who we are.
It's not just a set of techniques, it's a way of life, a way of being in the world that, like, fosters connection and understanding and peace.
I love that. And I think that's what makes NVC so relevant, especially in today's world.
Right.
With all the division and conflict we're facing,
Right.
it really offers a path to bridge those divides
Yeah.
and create a more compassionate and just society.
It's that reminder that we all have the capacity for empathy and understanding, even when we disagree.
Yeah, we do.
And by choosing to communicate from that place, we can create a ripple effect that not only transforms our own lives,
Yeah.
but the world around us.
It all starts with each of us making that conscious choice
Yeah.
to speak and listen from the heart.
And I think that's a beautiful place to leave our listeners with a final thought from the book.
Oh, yes, I love this one.
A little something to ponder, as they continue their own exploration of NVC.
Rosenberg poses this provocative question: what will they think of me? Must be put aside for purpose.
Wow, that's powerful.
It's about letting go of that fear of judgment
Right.
and embracing our authentic selves.
Right. Even if it means challenging social norms or expectations.
Exactly. It's about living in alignment with our values.
Yeah.
And allowing ourselves to experience the joy and freedom that comes from being true to ourselves.
That's a beautiful message to carry with us.
It is.
As we navigate, the complexities of life.
And for those of you who are eager to delve deeper into NVC, I encourage you to check out the Center for Nonviolent Communication.
The CNVC?
The CNVC. Yes, they have workshops, trainings, and a wealth of resources online.
Well, this has been an incredible journey exploring the depths of NVC.
It has. It's been a pleasure diving deep with you.
And to all of our listeners, may your journey with NVC be filled with compassion and connection and a deep sense of peace.